Now we'll officially welcome you. I am Dora Faye Hendricks. I am the volunteer chair of Words Writers in West Seattle, and we appreciate your attention. We appreciate your coming from all those different sources, and we appreciate you asking, because we need to know that too. And that way we can thank the blog and the Times and the West Seattle calendar for bringing you to us. Saw that I didn't count how many are from the museum, but you already know our executive director. I introduce him next, but before I do, I want to just quickly mention that Barnes & Noble, this partnership with Barnes & Noble has enabled us to meet here on a regular basis, first Friday, don't forget it, and remind your friends. But this is a fundraiser for the museum, and we have coupons, there are really notices, so that when you buy a book, any book, within 8 days or whatever of one of our presentations, then the museum gets 10%.
Wow. Good.
So my husband is a drummer. Could I have a drum roll, honey? I do want to introduce Clay, our executive director, and he's the reason we have this good PR. He teaches me, and I'm doing some of the work now.
Thank you all for coming. This is a bigger crowd than last time, and that's what we're hoping for. We're going to have to make Barnes & Noble bring more chairs here. Huh? What do you think? Would you please welcome Peter Steckel?
Thank you. So I'm going to tell you... no, that's fine, because it fills the screen. I'm going to tell you the story. It's a World War II story. It's not a particularly unusual story. It involves the deaths of 4 soldiers. A lot of people died during the Second World War. So in that regard, it's not an unusual story. But the backstory, the story behind how these 4 young men lost their lives, is a tale that is very rarely told. I was up here in August of 2007. This is the Mendel Glacier. It's in Kings Canyon National Park in California. And I was up there with my friend Michelle. We were up there looking for the remains of an airplane very similar to this one. This is the Beech 18 AT-7 Navigator. It was used for navigation training during the Second World War. And the reason we were up there is because on November 18th, 1942, one of these Beech 18 AT-7 Navigators disappeared. It was on a training flight. It had a crew of 4, a pilot, and 3 student navigators, or they called them cadets. And here's a picture of the pilot. His name is William Gamber, Second Lieutenant William Gamber. Also on board was aviation cadet John M. Mortensen, and also on board aviation cadet Ernest Glenn Munn. His family knew him as Glenn. And also on board was aviation cadet Leo Mustonen. And these 3 boys, and they called them boys in those days, even though they were young adults, these boys were studying to be navigators on the big bombers of World War II, the B-17 and the B-24. Now, the official Army Air Force's accident report is this. It says on November 18, 1942, an airplane with a registration number 41-21079 departed from Mather Field in California, which is on the outskirts of Sacramento. And on board was Gamber, Mortensen, Munn, and Mustonen. Well, that was 1942. The crash site wasn't discovered until the summer of 1947. 4 UC Berkeley students, all combat vets from the war, were about to go back to school, and they figured before they went back to college and had to study all the time, they would take the entire summer off and do a backpacking and fishing trip in the mountains. And on a lark, they went up a canyon that doesn't get very much foot traffic, and they climbed up to a glacier, and here you can see two of them on the glacier. And on this glacier, the Mendel Glacier, they discovered airplane wreckage and partial human remains. Well, it was early in the year, it was July, they still had over a month in the backcountry, and they completely forgot about their discovery. And then in September, they were back at school, they were at a fraternity party. It was one of those things, well, how did you spend your summer vacation? And these guys go, remember that airplane wreck we found on Mendel Glacier? And they talked about that for a while, drank some more beer, and then forgot about it again. Well, it turned out that one of the people, one of their fraternity brothers, was still in the reserves, in the Army Reserves, stationed at Hamilton Field in Marin County. And when he went back to work the next day, he said, I heard about an airplane crash in the Sierra Nevada mountains. It needs to be investigated. What do you think? The Army brass said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. They contacted one of the students, one of the 4 students. Here he is, his name's Bill Bond. And he guided Captain Robert Lewis and Captain Jack Talbot up to the crash site. They spent 3 days getting there. They spent less than 3 hours on the glacier because it was late September, it was cold, it was snowy, and they found what they needed to find, which was on one of the engines, there was a tag very similar to this one, and on that tag it had an airplane identification number on it. When they got back to the San Francisco Bay Area, they could take that number and compare it against a list of aircraft numbers, and that's when they discovered that the wreckage that was found on Mendel Glacier in 1947 belonged to the airplane that had disappeared in 1942. And in their official report, they describe HE741-21079 took off from Mather Field. It's not reported. It wasn't found till 24 September 1947 on Darwin Glacier, on the north side of Darwin Peak. Describes a really steep slope, wreckage all over the place, and at the bottom, very bottom, it says very importantly, no bodies recovered. Okay. And so in 1948, the Army sent this guy up there, Roy Sulzbacher. He's captain. During the war, he worked in the Graves Registration Service. His job in the South Pacific, where he was stationed, was to establish cemeteries for soldiers killed in battle. And at the end of the war, his job was to dig those people up and ship them back to the United States for burial. So he made 2 trips in 1948. He did a survey trip in July, and then he returned in September with, they called them mountain troops in those days. These particular guys were from Fort Lewis, which we all know is pretty close to here. These people were trained in working at high elevation, and they had somehow gotten it into their minds that there was an entire airplane buried underneath the ice of the glacier, and they were going to dig their way down with these shovels. And they had gasoline-powered jackhammers because they thought ice was like concrete, and they were going to jackhammer the way down to the airplane. Well, they were even less successful than the people who spent 3 hours on the glacier the previous year. These guys spent over a week. And they may have found something if they had stayed the entire 2 weeks they were planning, except Captain Sulzbacher was deadly ill. And when I say deadly ill, I mean deadly as in deadly. He got back to San Francisco and checked into the hospital, and a day later he was dead from polio.
Oh, gee.
He had poliomyelitis, the bulbar type, which means it was in his lungs. So it could not have been very easy for him, and certainly not good for him, to be at an elevation of 12,500 feet for a week, crawling, running, climbing over a glacier. He probably would have died anyway, but being on the glacier sped up the process. And so there the story stood from 1948 until 2005, completely forgotten.
Wow.
But in October 2005, 2 climbers on the Mendel Glacier had come to climb up this icy slope here, and they discovered something buried in the ice. And it's amazing that they succeeded in finding anything, because it wasn't a nice blue sky day like this. It was late October, October 25th. It was threatening to snow, rain, and sleet all at the same time. The wind was blowing. They had their parka hoods up over their heads. So about all they could see was like this. And the first climber walked past an object which he thought was a rock. And the second climber walked past it as well, but for some reason, the wind died down, and the second climber heard this flapping sound. He told me it sounded like Tibetan prayer flags flapping in the wind. And so what they had discovered was this. And what we're looking at are the remains of one of the 4 aviators lost in 1942. And this is his backside here, and this is his left shoulder, and he's planted in the ice like this.
Oh.
Like he's doing the butterfly stroke if you're a swimmer. So let me verify, because I'm so close to the screen. Is everything in focus for everybody?
It's just that it's kind of bright.
Okay. So the climbers hiked out, reported their discovery to the authorities, the sheriff's department in the little town of Bishop, California. Since this was in a national park, the sheriff contacted the park rangers. They had to wait several days because of various snowstorms, but eventually they flew up to the Mendel Glacier in a helicopter, and over the course of an entire day, working in sub-freezing temperatures in the shade, go ahead, with ice axes and hand trowels and little dental picks, they dug out the remains of this boy. Eventually a block of ice about like this, weighing about 600 pounds. And then they flew him out to the coroner in Fresno. And what the coroner did is, because it was an unknown death, the legal machinery dictated that the remains had to be taken to the coroner. The remains were defrosted over the course of several days by pouring tap water over the remains to melt the ice. And then the coroner had to determine whether this was an accidental death or a homicide. It was termed an accidental death, and because of all the military uniform and insignia on the remains, he was shipped to Hickam Field in Hawaii, in Honolulu, to the offices of JPAC, JPAC, which stands for the Joint POW MIA Accounting Command. They're a division of the Army, and their job is to research, find, recover, repatriate, and identify the remains of U.S. service personnel killed either overseas or domestically by accident. And they go all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Most of their work is involved in recovering the remains of soldiers killed in Vietnam, but there are over 80,000 MIAs just from the Second World War. So they have a lot of work to do.
Now this group didn't know about the crash before.
They did not know about the crash. So 6 months after recovering the remains, JPAC identified him as this boy, Aviation Cadet Leo Mustinen. And everyone, raise your hand if you've seen all those CSI TV shows where so they use all that stuff. And they were doing genetic testing. They got genetic material from the other 3 boys on the plane, but they need to have DNA, RNA, messenger RNA from female side of the family, a blood relative. Leo didn't have any female relatives that were blood relatives. So the way they were finally able to identify him was, number one, through process of elimination. He didn't match the other 3 samples, but he also had a name badge on his shirt, similar to this one, and on it they were able to get the E and O of Leo, the A from his middle name, and the M from his last name. So they decided this must be Leo. But there were some interesting questions that were not answered. How could the remains be found on Mendel Glacier? That's where the climbers were. That's where Leo was found. But the official report said the remains are on Darwin Glacier. That came from 1948. So, also the report said they were flying to Corning, California. Have the next picture. Here's a map of California. Here's Mather Field in Sacramento. Here's Corning. Here's the Mendel Glacier.
Yeah.
How the heck could they get there? I mean, it was a navigation training exercise. I've heard of being lost, but this is downright bewildered.
Yeah.
And if no bodies were recovered, like the official report said, why was there this headstone in Golden Gate National Cemetery, south of San Francisco, with the names of the crew on it? Things were getting curiouser and curiouser. So I wrote an article for a magazine, a small magazine called Sierra Heritage, trying to figure out the answers to these questions. And the more I worked on it, the more I thought, this would be an interesting idea for a book. I've got to go up there. I got to go look for the airplane. And so that's why I was up here in August of 2007. I wanted to know where was the airplane, because no airplane had been found with the remains of Leo Mustinen. To give you an idea how big an area this is, here's my friend Michelle. This is the Mendel Glacier. We're looking at an area equivalent to, most people you'd like to have, talk about, well, it's the size of a football field. Well, we're looking at the equivalent of probably 4 or 5 football stadiums. It's a big place. And we were looking for small things. This is a photograph I got from one of the climbers. This is Leo Mustinen's remains. So you can see how difficult it must have been to find him. Well, Michelle and I found instantly lots of wreckage. Oh, we need to plug the... Okay, sorry about that. Back on track. So Michelle and I were on Mendel Glacier. It's August 2007, and we're looking for the airplane that should have been carrying Leo Mustinen, trying to solve the mystery of what happened. So we found lots of wreckage really quickly. This is one of the front wheels of Beech 18, and we also found